Hi, my name's Ryan Van Lant, and I'm the chairman of the SKIA Referees Council. There's currently a lot that we can't do due to coronavirus restrictions, but the lockdown also presents us with opportunities to teach and learn in different ways. I typically run refereeing and judging clinics prior to our national and state championships, and the focus tends to be on developing and embedding core capabilities for our officials. But there are also ancillary capabilities that can be useful, particularly for A and B level referees. And that brings me to the subject of this webinar, informal gesturing for referees. The transition from fukushin, or judge, to shushin, or referee, is a big step up. The shushin must simultaneously control a fight, apply the rules, award points and penalties, and communicate using gestures. This is why we typically emphasize the official gestures during our clinics. But informal gestures can assist in communication with judges and can help to keep the fight flowing. What I mean by this is that the informal gestures can be made while moving to communicate with a judge that you saw the point they've scored, but are not stopping the fight because it was too soft or too far or for whatever other reason. While these gestures are not compulsory, they are encouraged, especially at the national and world levels. And while the gestures are typically used by the centre referee, we'll see towards the end of this webinar that equivalent informal gestures can be made by judges. And it's of course useful for all officials to be able to at least recognise the informal gestures being made by the centre referee. The first of our informal gestures, Jawai, means that the technique was not enough. For example, it might have been too soft or poorly executed. The referee will gesture on the attacking side. So in this example, Aka's technique was not enough, remembering that Aka is always on the referee's right-hand side. The gesture is performed with a downwards motion, like you're pushing down on something. This would typically be followed with torimasen to signify no point, unless of course Shiro scored or there was a penalty. In training, you might have come across the term mai in relation to distancing. In this case, mai means the technique was too far away to score. Again, we gesture on the attacking side. So in this example, Shiro's technique was short of the target. And as before, this gesture would typically be followed with torimasen to signify no point, unless Aka scored or there was a penalty. Nukateru means that the technique went past, basically saying that it missed the target. The referee will gesture on the attacking side. So in this example, Shiro's technique went past Aka's head. The referee might also gesture in front of their stomach to indicate a Chudan level technique. Due to the potential for techniques that fly past the opponent's head to be dangerous, it's good practice to consider whether a penalty should be applied in this case, even if there has not been any contact. Ukateru means that the technique was blocked, or maybe it hit the arm. This one's a little more complicated, in that you need to remember to gesture with your vertical arm on the side that blocked. So in this example, Aka has blocked Shiro's technique. I guess you could think of this like Shiro has executed a haito, but it has hit Aka's arm. This would typically be followed with torimasen to signify no point, again, unless of course Aka scored or there was a penalty. Hai is used in the case that two scores happened close together, but one was just a little earlier. We're all encouraged to make a decision on which technique scored first, rather than awarding Iuchi. Again, this one requires a bit of thinking, since you need to remember to gesture with your horizontal arm on the side that scored first. So in this example, Aka's technique scored before Shiro's. I think of this like Aka has gone in first. Since only the first point scores, this gesture will be followed by awarding the point, in this case to Aka. As mentioned earlier, judges can also make the informal gestures to communicate with the referee. However, since we don't want to unnecessarily distract the referee, These signals would typically only be made if the referee inquires as to the reason for a decision. The informal gestures for judges are pretty much the same as those used by referees, and would typically be followed by your decision, be it torimasen or a penalty or a score. Again, please keep in mind that these gestures are not compulsory, so if you're unsure, please stick to the official gestures we practice in our refereeing and judging clinics. I hope this has been useful, and I'm sure I speak for the whole Referees Council when I say that I can't wait to get back to physical training and competitions. I wish you good health. Us.